Sponsored by Midland, communication for every adventure. The industry leader in radio communication technology and innovation for over 50 years.
Always remember, the opinion you follow should be your own. Just consider the things stated here to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online.
Hi, my name is Phil from Waypoint Overland, and you're listening to Random Waypoints. All right, so here we go. Welcome to episode 4 of the Random Waypoints podcast. We'll be doing an episode every week, so like, share, and subscribe. You can hit the notification bell to make sure you don't miss an episode. Later in the show, we'll be doing more taste tests, along with making some delicious recipes for the trail, as well as looking at some weather and emergency-related gear. We'll debut the first installment of a new segment called WAYPOINTS that deals with navigation and planning itineraries for the overland traveler. We'll be looking at the topic from a completely different point of view. Also, I'll share another one of my random lists. So stay tuned for the whole show. Now let's take a look at the news.
During this segment, we'll cover various topics with a connection to overlanding in some way. It could be land use news regarding the national parks or the Bureau of Land Management. We'll keep you up to date on any auto industry news when it pertains to relevant and potential overlanding vehicles. There will be camping and outdoor industry news, as well as photography and video, fishing, hiking, and on and on. Now, here's the news.
Ever since I attended the inaugural Panhandle Overland Rally last October, many people have asked me what I thought of the event, and will there be another? Well, this week I received an email from Joe Muldoon, the event organizer, congratulating me on the podcast and to inform me, and I quote, "The dates are looking unofficially like October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, with vendors getting in a day early this time so that guests and vendors are not setting up at the same time. I hope to get at least 500 attendees this time, plus vendors and staff. I want to keep the event smaller than other rallies to make it more enjoyable and personable. So if you were interested or planning to attend, that's the word from the man. Oh, and I had a blast last year. It was a pleasant surprise, especially for a first-time event. I want to speak specifically to our two-wheeled overlanders right now. The overland community is like any other community. A collection of subgroups, cliques, and communities that have something in common and unite under one banner. I want to make sure all our two-wheel travelers feel welcome here, and rest assured, there'll be content focused toward you as well. With that said, Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation is hosting a webinar on motorcycling the Parkway. You'll hit the open road virtually with Hawk Hageback at 11 a.m. Eastern on March 2nd for his humorous take on motorcycle up and down the Blue Ridge Parkway. It'll be a 30-minute webinar and include the Code of the Road, which is the unwritten rules for those who travel this 469-mile route. For those wondering who Hawk Hageback is an author, comedian, and retired law enforcer who logged two-wheeled tours in 48 states. He's written a series of motorcycle adventures, guidebooks about over 5,000 miles of the best riding in the eastern U.S., including Southern Appalachia and the Blue Ridge Parkway. And he's performed at comedy clubs in Atlanta. So, the event is free, and I'll put a link down in the description. Well, some people are going to say they're too late to the game, but this week was the launch of Harley-Davidson's Pan American 1250, which will be the company's first adventure touring bike. So I'm wondering, will this become a valid or successful choice for exploring in the overland community? It's a liquid-cooled V-twin that produces 150 horsepower and 94 pound-feet of torque. Their top-level Pan American 1250 special model adds electronically adjustable semi-active front and rear suspension. The special model also gets tire pressure monitoring, a steering damper, a brush guard, and skid plate, as well as an adjustable rear brake pedal an adaptive front headlight, and heated hand grips. The electronic suspension automatically drops the bike when at rest and raises back up under motion. The tilting 6.8-inch touchscreen display features Bluetooth connectivity and navigation through an app offered for Apple and Android phones. You can use the selectable ride modes, road, sport, rain, off-road, and off-road plus, or you can use your own configurable settings for both on and off-road riding to tailor the bike's electronic package to suit the needs of the rider and the terrain. Its features enhanced electronic braking, anti-lock braking, traction control, and hill control. Cruise control comes standard. Pricing starts at $17,300 with the special edition at $19,900. Both will arrive in dealerships this spring. And you know with the Harley, you can expect all kinds of accessories. I'd like to hear what you think of it for overland travel. Do you predict this very obvious attempt at wooing younger generation of riders to be successful or not? It's time now for a new segment here called Waypoints.
Waypoints. Waypoints will cover all aspects of navigation for the overland traveler. Navigation is the act or practicing of navigating, the method of determining position, course, and distance traveled.
Navigation is the process or activity of accurately ascertaining one's position and planning and following a route. I think there's more than enough information about basic navigation on the trail, but I don't see many overlanders addressing navigation outside of that. For me, navigation is by far the subject I'm asked about most often. I'm asked about it often enough that it's the main impetus for my idea to create this podcast. I could never really answer the questions I receive properly in an email. The questions I get seem to focus on how do I put together my trips from A to Z? How do I come up with all the unique locations I go to? How do I create my routes? How do you find those lesser known trails all over the place? People want to know, how do I find the farmers markets in the middle of nowhere? How did you know about that restaurant, diner, or food truck? How did you discover that historical site? Well, each week we'll tackle step by step my methods for creating an incredible journey. First, do you know the 3 ways to navigate? There's celestial, orienteering, and global positioning system. Celestial navigation is the science of navigating by the stars, sun, moon, and planets. It's not something most of us know about or have the equipment for. But learning celestial navigation could be a lifesaver if your electronic toys stop working. Even without the proper equipment, you can still take the fundamentals and do some very basic orienteering. Orienteering is basically finding your way with only a map and compass. If you learn how to use a map and compass, you can pretty much navigate anywhere. You just use the map to give you a visual of the area, and the compass shows you the direction. GPS, it provides you with positioning, navigation, and timing on land or sea. GPS technology is in our cell phones, cars, and watches. It's also used for farming, construction, surveying, and lots of other stuff. The military, who this stuff was originally invented for, uses GPS for all types of applications, and it's also used for weather forecasting. Side note, I came up with the name Waypoint Overland based on the fundamental way that I put together my journeys. It all starts with that first waypoint, and I work off of that waypoint to create a route overland. This week, we'll be addressing my first steps in creating a route and an itinerary. The very first thing, as I said, is that very first waypoint. All throughout the year, I watch things like Art Wolf's Travel to the Edge, Travel Channel, Long Way Round, Alaska Off-Road Warriors, and other programs like that. I research film locations of movies based on their cinematography and the locations they're filmed in. Movies like Road to Paloma, The Big Year, Into the Wild, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, Land Ho, Of River Runs Through It. I receive and read newsletters from the tourism departments of every state and for some cities and counties. And in addition to all of that, I always pay attention when someone tells me their stories of fun and adventure. I make sure to note the places and details on my phone or my notepad. I'm constantly updating a rolling list I have with all types of festivals and events all across the country. And I put all those locations and events on my Google map. I also add them to my Gaia GPS software, and I save all my GPX files to a hard drive. You acquire enough files over time that losing them is like losing a diary you've been writing in for years. For added redundancy, I keep it all written down on moleskin notepads too. Let's start an Overland trip. Let's say I've decided I want to go to Overland Expo East, which is an event everybody should go to at least once if you're an Overlander. It's like Disneyland or Disney World for Overlanders. So Expo becomes my first waypoint. Then I look at the date I should arrive at that waypoint. Once I have this established, I then go to Google Maps and turn on the terrain feature to look at the terrain that lies between my starting point and my waypoint. In this case, the starting point is Washington. What I'm specifically looking for is the color green and bumps. I want as much of my route to travel through the green areas with the most bumps as possible. For me, green means forests, national parks, BLM land, state and county forest, and hopefully trails and back roads. The bumps to me mean mountains, lakes, hilly land, marshes, and very often low population per square mile. That's conducive to being an area rich with wildlife. At this point, I loosely string together the events and locations to visit during my trip. I don't care where they are or how far out of the way they may be. The only criteria is them being between my starting point and furthest waypoint. These points for me most often are not in a direct path to my first waypoint because I try to travel by as many trails, dirt roads, and backcountry roads as possible. This is when I start to tighten things up and start creating potential routes. I use Gaia GPS to look at campsites I've saved over the years to help guide me. And I just draw lines on a map at first. I look for actual roads and trails later. Now I have an idea of events, locations, and routes I might take. This is when I calculate how much time I would like to be at these places and add it all up with the general line of the start and finish date of my trip. Now it's time to compare possible routes with which one gives me the most green, the most bumps, top events, as well as locations and campsites. In addition to those considerations, I now start to consider actual day-to-day itineraries for each route. I want to get an idea of the rhythm for each route if I take it. Deciding on arrival and departure times is a big deal to me, so I need to include determining sunrise and sunset for each place, which changes as I go through different time zones. I like to arrive slightly before sunrise or right before sunset to most places for the photographic opportunities. This is when I use an app called Photo Ephemeris. I use it to help me plan all my outdoor photography during my trips. It's a map-based sun, moon, and Milky Way calculator. I'm able to plan a shot in great detail before ever going there. You don't want to miscalculate that bucket list shot on your once-in-a-lifetime journey. There are very different stories to be told by what choices I ultimately make. Next week, we'll choose our route and start filling in an itinerary. I'll explain how to have a detailed itinerary, yet not lose the ability to be spontaneous or go in a completely different direction due to circumstances out of your control. Also, how by securing campsites in advance, you can give yourself flexibility and options. Now let's move on to random waypoints.
Random Lists is all about lists Waypoint Overland has created on an array of topics, such as top 5 national parks, top 10 trails in the United States, top 10 fill in the blank. I think you get it. Some lists will be pure fun, and others very informational. But they all will have a connection to overlanding in some way. We're very interested in hearing your suggestions for upcoming lists in the comments. Now, here's our random list.
My random list this week is my top 5 events across the United States for overlanders to attend. My criteria for this list is camping opportunities, location, opportunities beyond just the event, and what the event has to offer. And with that, we start with the Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The Balloon Fiesta is the largest balloon fiesta in the world, with over 500 hot air balloons that fly each year. It features many different events held over multiple days. They have morning glow on the first day and themed mass ascensions. This is easily one of the most significant tourist attractions and events in New Mexico. I love the options I have as an overlander attending this event. I can attend the event and camp in the surrounding areas in any direction. Or if you have a camper or a rooftop tent, you can camp adjacent to the event and attend, or not. And my favorite option, which I will be doing this year, is check the weather for predicted wind patterns, strategically camp in the desert, either dispersed or find something more formal, then just open my window at dawn and enjoy the mass ascension hover above me. At number 2, I have the Burning Man in the desert of Nevada. Now imagine a festival that isn't a usual festival like the others, because almost everything in the city is created by citizens who participate actively in this experience, and there's no trace of the event 9 days later. Burning Man is a giant free love hippie arts and music festival out in the middle of the Nevada desert, known for its massive temporary sculptures and the random things you can find, from all of the weird themed booths to the outrageous vehicles. And a place to camp here will be no problem. I have at number 3, High Siera Music Festival in Quincy, California. This music festival includes arts and crafts, parades, yoga, movement workshops, and after-hours shows in a serene forest setting. Past musical lineups included names like Andrew Bird and Keller Williams. And being a kid-friendly event, parents can use on-site daycare to keep the kids safe and entertained. A big thing about this event is that camping is encouraged, and this is definitely the place for it. At number 4, I have the Maine Lobster Festival in Rockland, Maine. Not the biggest event in the world, but one of my favorites. Basically, you have 9 huge tents, the world's greatest lobster cooker, a sea goddess, top-notch entertainment, a big parade, crate races, fine art, crafts, people, vendors, Navy ship tours, all-you-can-eat pancakes, over 20,000 pounds of lobster. Topping all that off is that it's located on the coast of Maine. There's plenty of parking right across the street from the event with security. I've left my rig there twice and felt very comfortable, although I did periodically leave out and take a peek.
Always remember, the opinion you follow should be yours.
Use your own discretion as an overlander. And when it's over, you have all of Maine to explore, and Vermont, and New Hampshire, upstate New York, and northern Appalachia. At number 5, I have the Running of the Bulls at the Cheyene Frontier Days in Wyoming. Frontier Days is an outdoor rodeo and western type of celebration held annually. This is one of the largest events of its kind and attracts about 200,000 people each year. As entertaining as the rodeo is, for me, the biggest reason by far to go is the running of the bulls they do, similar to the famous running of the bulls that happens in Spain. They have nightly concerts and comedy acts, a fair with rides, games, and multiple food vendors. A special part of the event is the free pancake breakfast. Well, that's my list. Do you agree or disagree? Do you have your own list? Share in the comments. Let's keep it rolling with the communications. And speaking of communications, the Midland ER310E+ Ready Emergency Crank Weather Radio is a must for emergency preparedness. The ER310 keeps you informed in case of severe weather or civil emergency. Just 1 minute of cranking produces 45 minutes of radio time and 30 minutes of flashlight use. Plus, its durable body means that it can stand up to rainy weather or a drop onto a hard surface. It has multiple sustainable power sources, solar, a hand crank, and rechargeable battery. But you always have a backup option of using a common AA battery. It has a bright flashlight that uses Cree LEDs. There's an SOS flashlight beacon. It activates Morse code for emergency assistance. You can charge your devices through the USB connection. It even has an ultrasonic dog whistle that may help assist search and rescue teams in locating you during an emergency situation. Here, we're experiencing avalanches in the mountains, and a dog whistle may be your only hope. 32 hours of long battery life under normal use with this rechargeable battery. And its main purpose for me is its NOAA weather radio with alert. The weather alerts sound when issued on local channels. I posted on Instagram in one of my trips to Colorado this year about encountering severe weather. There were weather alerts going off on my Midland GMRS radio all day. My words wouldn't have been so poetic about the experience if I had been surprised by the weather. Because the information I had was so up to date, I was able to squeeze in trail time to Engineer Pass and head back to camp. And early the next day, I went to Stony Pass, the whole time being able to stay away from the worst of the weather pattern. I hunkered down in my rooftop tent during some brutal hail, lightning, snow, rain, and thunder all in one night. I was listening to the latest up-to-date info the entire time on my Midland ER310 weather radio. I felt that at the altitude where I was camping, I'd be fine. But if things changed, I would know in enough time to evacuate. This enabled me to have a great time and avoid the worst of the weather. As a matter of fact, when I woke up, I enjoyed a sunrise that only comes after a weather and a storm. It's ideal for emergency preparedness, overlanding, camping, and everyday use. It's something you should have at home and on your travels, in my opinion. Well, the stomach is growling and it's time for taste test.
Taste tests. Taste test is where we evaluate the taste of a food product, whether on its own or compared with other products. Some taste tests will be conducted blind, while others will focus on a particular brand or item.
This week, we're going to make an easy but delicious Asian-inspired sardine sandwich and a Japanese cucumber salad. Later, we'll taste test some wines and charcuterie that you might take on an overland trip. First, our Asian-inspired sardines. I chose this sandwich to show what's possible with pantry goods that you can store in your dry box when you're on an overland journey. Our main ingredient, sardines, are abundant in the Atlantic, Pacific, and Mediterranean seas. They feed on plankton only, which means they don't contain the high levels of mercury that other fish do. Sardines aren't a popular fish in the United States, but after you take a look at their nutritional benefits, you might want to consider them. These small fish are packed with nutrients that can be beneficial in the prevention of a number of health conditions. Some of these nutrients are known to help prevent heart disease or may protect against certain cancers. Sardines are an excellent source of omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin B, vitamin D. Sardines are an excellent source of calcium, which makes them a good choice if you're lactose intolerant, allergic to dairy, or need more calcium in your diet. If that's not enough, sardines contain the following minerals: niacin, iron, potassium, magnesium, zinc, phosphorus. Sardines also have protein, which is essential for you to build healthy bones and muscles. Another thing about protein, it helps create antibodies that keep our immune system strong. While sardines can be enjoyed fresh, they're highly perishable. That's why most commonly they're found canned. With that, let's get started on our sandwich. Okay, here we go. These are the ingredients. It's very simple: cucumber, red onion, chili garlic sauce, some toast, and sardines. So let's get this going. The first thing is what we're going to do with the bread. So with the bread, you can do it as is, but typically for this type of sandwich, we cut off of the ends. So we're going to cut off the ends, which is very easy to do. Anybody can do that. This is a sandwich that anybody can do, and I chose it because it's something that you can keep in your dry box, and you can make it like that, and it's delicious. So we've got our bread, right? And now we have our bread, and we're going to open up these Well, before we do that, we're going to set this to the side and we're going to deal with this cucumber. Now, what we do first is we peel a little bit off like that. And you don't want to go in deep. You just want to get enough off to leave that white like what you see there. And 4 sides is good. This one, so now once you do it like that, we're going to cut very thin slices. And I mean thin. The thinner you cut them, the better. Now, I know I'm not doing a good job at this second, and that's because it's so important to have thin that I'm focusing on that. And I don't mind messing up a few to get the thin. And I can even use some of the broken ones. It won't matter. Now, the reason why we want them thin is because this is about flavors and textures. And with this particular dish, textures has a lot to do with flavors. If you cut these thicker, you may like them that way, but it's going to have a different flavor than if you cut it thin. The same with the onions. Another version of this that I make, I use white or yellow onions, and I cut them thick and chunky. And the thick and chunky has a lot to do with the flavor and with the texture, the way it crunches when you bite into it. So it's going to taste good no matter what. But ultimately what's going to happen is after you've made a couple of these, you're going to decide what thickness or thinness. But traditionally you want this thin, especially if you're doing it Asian style like we're doing. And speaking of that, this is Asian inspired, but you can use hot sauce, you can use Tabasco, you can use salsa, sofrito, mustard, all types of things. There's more than one people that make sardine sandwiches, so you can go in many different directions with this, but we're going Asian style today. So give me a second, I'll be right back. I want to drain these sardines. All right, so we have our sardines. They look delicious. We've drained them a little bit. I left a little oil in there, and we're going to add them to our bread. I'm going to go one by one and just line them up. There's nothing special that needs to be done. Just line them up. If you want a bunch of them, you put a bunch. If you want just a few, you put just a few. And for me, that's enough for me. Okay. Now we're going to take our thin, paper thin cucumbers and put those next. We're going to thinly slice some red onion. I don't need very much of that, but you put as much as you like. That should be enough. And how you lay them out, too, has a lot to do with the texture. And that's enough onions for me. Now, my wife, at this point, she likes to put mustard on them. And I do too, but we're keeping this Asian inspired, so we're not doing that today. We're using chili garlic sauce. I'm going to add a little bit of that. And when I say a little, because you don't want it to be the main flavor component. You just want it to to add just a little bit of spice. And see, that might not be enough for most people, but I mean for some people, but for most people that's going to be perfect. And then we crown it with our bread. And ladies and gentlemen, and you know I ain't about to make this and not at least take one bite. And we're going to make so much stuff today that I'm only going to take a couple of bites and then I'm moving on. It's delicious. I like canned fish of all kinds, so this is right up my alley. You can keep cans of these in your dry box forever almost, you know, at least for a full season, a whole year. You can keep them in your dry box and they're there. You can either eat them out of the can, which I like to do, or you can make something like this. Now what's next is we're going to make a cucumber salad. So we're going to clean this up and I'll be right back. All right, our next dish is the Japanese cucumber salad, or in Japanese, sunomono. This is something you may have eaten before, but had no idea how to make. It's a popular salad at Japanese restaurants, and it's simple to make. Here are the ingredients with some options. You need a cucumber, toasted white sesame seeds, rice vinegar, table sugar, kosher sea salt, and soy sauce. Now, there's variations with this next ingredient. You can use canned tiny shrimp, canned crab meat, canned anchovies, imitation crab meat, caviar, 2 ounces boiled octopus, or any kind of seafood that you think would go with it. First, we're going to make the seasoning. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to, in a bowl, and when I say a bowl, it's really more like a plate. We're going to put the ingredients together. All right, to make the seasoning, we're going to start out with 4 tablespoons of rice vinegar. I rarely measure, but I'm giving you measurements to start. And what'll happen is you'll make adjustments to taste as time goes on. The next thing is you want to have 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar. Now, the sugar that I'm using, this particular sugar is an organic raw sugar. My wife buys it, so that's what I use. Okay, we've got our granulated sugar. And the next thing we need is a half a teaspoon of kosher salt. And I'm using sea salt. Now, don't focus too much on what salt you use. Just use the salt that you normally use. I normally go back and forth between sea salt and kosher salt. That's what I had today, so that's what I used. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a tablespoon of soy sauce. And I'm going to kind of eyeball it. I'm used to making this. And once you've added the rice vinegar again, the granulated sugar, the kosher salt, and the soy sauce, just whisk it real well. And it's a nice dark brown. It's going to go well on the salad. Okay, so if the vinegar taste is too strong, you can dilute it with a little small amount of water. Now, the main component of this salad, again, is thin sliced cucumbers. And they're going to taste completely different than what we have become accustomed to, because the sauce and whatever variation you decide to add to it gives it just a completely different flavor. And I try to make mine paper thin because I like the sauce to get right into the cucumber. So, nope, I want a few more because I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to eat it and I'm going to enjoy it. Okay, now we're going to combine this. I'm going to grab a plate. And we're going to take our I think I need some more cucumbers. Now this is something that I snack on at home all the time. I'll make it on the trail. It's a very versatile, refreshing thing to eat. It's easy to make. It's quick to make. It's taking me longer to make it, explaining it, than if I just went on ahead and just, put it together. Okay. So we have the cucumbers and laid out, and we're going to take our sauce, and you don't overdo it. I made all that sauce, and all I'm going to do is drip a little bit over it, a little bit at a time. But you don't want them drenched. You don't want to overdo it. So now we have our cucumbers coated with the sauce, and the next thing is you can, like I said, you can add things like crab meat, shrimp, caviar, imitation crab meat, mussels, practically any kind of seafood, especially light and flaky and white fishes, will all go good on this. We're going to go with caviar this time and see how that goes. And you want to make sure that you don't crush the egg, so find something. At home, I use a pearl spoon, but I wasn't going to take that out the house and lose it. So anyway, we're going to add the eggs. I love this particular version with the, I don't do this one very often because it's salty. I have to want a salty flavor because the caviar really makes it salty. That's actually a lot. So you could put like half of that amount and you'd be doing fine. Okay, so it's time to try this. Trust me, guys, this is really, really simple to make. Try it. If you don't like caviar, use some of the other things, but make this. And it's healthy. It's light and it's delicious. Yummy in my tummy. Now, if I had used the crab meat or the shrimp, I would have added a little more salt to it, but you don't need it with the caviar. This is black caviar, if that's what you're wondering. And I'm in heaven right now. I know I should have cut up more cucumbers, but we're not finished eating yet. So I'll make up for it on the next thing I eat. But I really wish I had made maybe twice as much of this. Again, I don't want to stress it. I want to stress it as much as possible to you. This is a keeper. This is the one you need to do. This is an easy one. And if you take the time to cut the cucumbers nicely and just layer them around and display them nicely, people will be impressed and you didn't really do nothing. So I want to move on. We're going to taste test some wines. And we're also going to taste different charcuteries that you can have in your dry box that either are non-perishable or will last a long time. At least they'll make it through your trip with no refrigeration. So let's get right to that. All right, so now we're back. We've got a couple of wines with us. We've got a bunch of charcuterie. Here we've got the 14 Hands Hot to Trot Smooth Red Blend. And we have the Barefoot Sweet Red Blend California Smooth Sweet Red Wine. Now, I chose these. I got them on Amazon. We get our groceries delivered to us on Amazon.com. And these were the cheapest 5-star rated red wines that they had by a large margin, as a matter of fact. This one, I believe, was like $6.99, and this one was $8.99, something like that. So they're cheap wines, and what we're going to do is we're going to test them out today. And not only are we going to test them out, like I said earlier, we're going to cover some of these items that I have here that you could easily take with you on an overland trip, and they would be delicious, as we're going to find out. So first, we're going to start by opening these wines up. Now, I chose red wines because that's what I drink. I drink red wines. So I'm not really a drinker, and this is one that I'm comfortable drinking every day. And I'm at an age now where they say it's good for me to be drinking wine. So that's what I do. All right. This first one that we've got here, we're starting with the Sweet Red Blend from California. And the second one we have here, we're going to let that one get some air to it. The second one that we have here is 14 Hands Hot to Trot. Well, out of the two, I like the bottle better. It looks better. It's a prettier bottle. But that doesn't mean a thing. It could turn out to be the worst. So after I open this particular bottle, then I'm going to explain what's going on here on the table. And by that time, our wines should have gotten some air. I've let them breathe, and we'll get a full body taste from the wine. I know y'all all know all that. I'm just trying to sound good. And we have another glass here. This is your glass. Okay. I'm going to put these bottles out of the way for a second. And now we're going to take a look at our plate here. All right, so here's our table. Up at the top, that white creamy stuff, that is called Boursin Shallow and Chives. It's a Gournay cheese. Next to it, we have Dietz and Watson truffle salami medallions. So salami with truffles in it. Then next to it, we have Cento anchovies. And next to it, we have the black caviar, some cheap brand. I don't know the name. And we have some more of the Patagonia mussels that I love so much. And spread all around are wheat crackers. All right, so now that we know what's up here, it's time for us to dig in. The first thing I want to try are these medallions of salami with truffle in them. And I'm picking them first because these are the only things up here that I've never had before. And I thought it was interesting. Truffles. I don't really taste truffles. And I don't like this. I could see someone liking this, but that's not my cup of tea right there. So this is a good time for us to try our first wine, which is the Sweet Red Blend. Smells good. Smells like wine. Now, I'm not going to give you all those fancy critiques telling you about the tannins and the oak scents and all of that kind of craziness. I'm just going to tell you how it tastes to me and whether I like it or not. It tastes nothing like what I thought it was going to taste like. I could pick this wine. If I had 10 red wines in front of me and I tasted them all, I could pick this out immediately. It has a very distinct taste. It's smooth. It's a sweet wine. Has a nice aroma. It tastes like a lot of cherries and a lot of plums are in this wine. Flavors of black cherry and plum. This is a winner. This is a winner. And if you haven't learned yet, I taste something and it's either a winner or it's not right off the bat. It's not gonna grow on me. So let me finish my wine. And then, hey, if you got something to drink over there, you guys drink up too. Because I'm going to be enjoying myself. You might as well also. All right. Next thing we're going to try are some of these anchovies. Now, when I've said I've had these before, I haven't had Cento before. But it was more popular on Amazon than the ones that I normally get, which are Little Oscars. They're good. I like my Oscars better. I can taste the difference, but these are good. I would absolutely buy these again. They were half the price, so there's that. And with that, now we're going to try 14 Hands Hot to Trot. This smells better than that one. This is the one I would drink at home or wherever. This is one I would purchase it for myself. But if I was visiting someone and I was bringing them a bottle of wine, this is the one I would bring them. And here's why. This has a very distinct taste, and I can see someone not liking it. And this one, if you like red wines, it's a very standard, it's a real straightforward flavor. It doesn't stand out. It doesn't taste bad. It's a good tasting wine, especially considering its price. I could see this being somebody's everyday wine that they drink all the time, and being 110% satisfied with it. But me being not a drinker, when I do drink, I want to really enjoy it. This has less of an alcohol flavor taste to it. It kind of reminds me of a Siera wine, kinda mixed with a sangria, if that makes any kind of sense. I could actually see myself using this as a base to make a sangria, to try and give you an idea of the taste. Very unusual, but delicious. Yep. This is also, this is one I would give someone, if they told me, I'm not really a wine drinker, I'd be like, okay, drink that. Because of the two, if you don't like wine, you don't want to drink alcohol, you don't like alcohol flavor and taste, that's the one to go with. Okay, the next thing, this is one of my favorite things. I eat this a lot. Many people who know me, who have seen me on the trail, have seen me pull this out and eat this when we pull over. This is always a delicious, quick snack. And it's the gourmet cheese. It has chives and onions in it. I also sometimes use it in a pinch on my bagels. I like to have bagels and lox, bagels and smoked salmon with capers and red onions, and with cream cheese. And if I don't have cream cheese, I usually have some of that in my fridge when I'm on the road, because I leave the house with like 3 of them in my fridge, because sometimes I can't find them. But these are delicious. Something else I do with these, I'll take some preserved jalapenos, the ones that come in the jar and are already cut up. They've been marinating in oil. I'll chop them up real, almost like minced. And I'll whip it up in here. And I'll take a little bit of tuna and I'll break it up and I'll mix it up in there. It might be an actual dish that I don't know the name of, and I didn't actually invent it, but I think that I invented that. But and it tastes good. This chopped up with a little red onion and a little jalapeno and a little tuna. Or you can use mackerel. Eating my caviar. And another thing that I like, I showed you these a few weeks ago. I'm eating some mussels from Patagonia Provisions, which is a part of Patagonia. It's their food section. And even though this is my favorite thing, and I talked about their food the other week, what I didn't tell you is I only showed you like a very small portion of all the different kind of foods and seeds, and they've got all kind of stuff. So go over there and check it out. If you didn't like what you saw, there's something over there delicious for you to eat. Okay, so this is where we're at with the wines. If I had only brought that one and this was going to be just this and this wine, I'd be totally fine. I'd drink it up. I'll go right through the bottle. But this one is so just delicious. It's just tasty, which I don't ever think of the words delicious or tasty when I think of alcohol. This one is delicious. So I've tried everything. We did the Asian sardines. We did the cucumber salad. We've tried all of these. I hope this is giving you some kind of ideas of some things that you can do on the trail other than grilling a steak all the time or making a ham sandwich, or, cooking a hot dog. And I love those things. But they can get repetitive and very boring. So I'm just trying to give you a different perspective. Now, next time we do a taste test, no more of this stuff. We're going to get into some cooking, and we're going to leave this alone for a little while, the canned goods and the dehydrated meals and all of that stuff. We may come back to them, but we're going to go in a completely different direction. I also have a segment coming up that I'm working on with someone where he's going to show you how to make inexpensive meals on the road. So I'm just kind of rambling now. The show is over. I want to thank you for stopping by. I hope you come back again. I hope you like, subscribe. If you do subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss a show. Please share the show. The show is going to get better. There's more segments that I still haven't gotten to. I've got a ton of interviews that I still haven't shown yet. Everything's looking positive. I'm very shocked. Subscribers are growing at a rate faster than I thought because I really didn't even think about it. And if you had asked me, I didn't think it would be doing as well as it is. So I'm thankful for all the new subscribers that I've gotten. And with that, I want to say, everyone stay safe, tread lightly, and hopefully I'll see you here on the trail soon.
Sponsored by Midland, communication for every adventure, the industry leader in radio communication technology and innovation for over 50 years. You have been listening to Waypoint Overland's Random Waypoints. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.